Hi, my name is Dr. Michelle Maidenberg, and I have Dr. Eve Goldstein here. And, we were talking last time. Eve gave us incredible tips on, what to do with families that you're sheltering in. And now we're actually getting to a point where we're phasing out of our homes. And, we've both been talking about just amongst ourselves and just within our communities, our therapeutic communities, how we've really seen an increase in anxiety, with these phasing in process. Eve lives in LA, and she was just telling me that she's in phase two, and I live in New York and we're in phase one. So there's different things coming up. So Eve, um, we started talking about it, and we both talked about in our practices how we're seeing different things come up in terms of the anxiety. So maybe we'll talk about that for like just a minute. So I was saying that I'm seeing within families, there's a little bit of a disparity in terms of how people are handling social distancing. And I'll give one example where I have a family where the father's, particularly vulnerable because of because of just being immunocompromised, and the daughter, who's a young adult, wanted to go visit her boyfriend. So there's a big secret amongst the mom and the daughter because she has been seeing her boyfriend, but the dad doesn't know. So that's an example. And then a couple days ago, while I was on the phone doing a parenting session, a big kind of, I'm going to say, argument ensued because the mom did not allow the daughter to go into a pool with two other friends, and the father thought it was okay. And they were both kind of like at it with each other about that. So, and what are you saying, Eve? What's coming up?
So this is definitely a very interesting time. I am definitely seeing some similar situations where people are trying to figure out where they're drawing the lines for themselves on what feels comfortable for them, what they can tolerate, what level of risk they can take, how to get back into the game of what I'm going to say living, which is the day-to-day things that we typically would have done pre-pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And I really think that in order to manage your own anxiety in relation to all of this, having a real clear perspective on what it is that you want, so that each time you're making a decision, you have a frame of reference to go back to. So if you're the kind of person that is all about wanting to live life and taking those risks, knowing that you're going to go do that with integrity, or if you're somebody who wants to be more risk averse and live kind of this more protected situation, that you are clear about that. I would say that I probably fall into the second camp, even though at my heart, I'm really part of the first camp. And last night I was talking to my daughter, and she said to me, Mom, when am I going to be able to be with my friends? Now, we've been doing a lot of social distancing get-togethers
Mm-hmm.
that in our backyard, because children need to be able to see one another and have that human interaction. Adults need to see one another and have that human interaction, but we're doing it in what we feel is the safest way. And when I started to go through the same story with her about the reason why we're doing what we're doing, she said, I don't even know why I'm asking, because she knows what the answer is at heart. She's just trying to figure it out. But by being that container for her and letting her know that this is the clear message that we're delivering as a family, she's able to move forward with whatever she has to tolerate with that integrity in place.
Mm-hmm. And I think also, like, we could go to extremes. So like, for example, like my son wanted to go surfing with his friends, and my first inclination is absolutely not, just because I'm like, how could you be social distancing? And then I thought about, like, what is it really? It's really about his safety, right? So as well as everybody else's safety. So I thought, well, if they're actually social distancing, right, and there's no
Right, you're
life.
not going to be on top of each other
Yeah,
surfing.
exactly. And the water is okay. We know that the water's fine. That's not the issue. However, there wasn't a lifeguard. on duty. So that was more of an issue for me, that if something were to happen, there's nobody there. So I said the only way that you could go is if there is somebody to supervise you, a parent there to make sure you're safe,
Right.
right?
So that's not COVID safety. That's just general
Yeah.
safety.
Well, but it was because underneath that was okay, there'll also be a parent there to make sure that they're social distancing. Right. That was in the back of my mind. But I think, I think that's such a great point. And I wanted to ask you a question and then also to just say one thing is I think we also have to be careful that we're modeling, we're modeling what we're speaking to, because I think sometimes we could send mixed messages and it's really confusing,
Right.
especially to kids. And I had a question because you first said the first statement you made was about with integrity. And I wanted to understand what you meant by that.
When
Like,
I'm saying with integrity, it's what your core belief is,
okay.
and then following that core belief fully one way or another, or
Mhm,
figuring out where you need to be flexible,
mhm.
but that it comes from your basic beliefs and
Okay.
that you have a clear message for yourself about how you want to manage
Hmm.
these new situations that we're
Hmm.
faced
Yeah. And I think like an example of that also is we were talking about another family of potentially going away with them. And, it started out by them saying, oh, do you want to share a house so that we could kind of cut costs? And I thought about it and I said, you know what, that wouldn't feel comfortable for me. Like I wouldn't mind going with them and like socially distancing and being with them, obviously, but I didn't necessarily feel comfortable, being in, a house with them. So we kind of
with.
talked about that, and that was important also to model to my kids because I've been really trying to reinforce to them the importance of it for the greater good and etc. So um, the other thing, based on what you just said, which I think is so important, when I said about the disparity within families,
Yes.
the piece I'm going to also add to that is that parents are not going to always be on the same page, but I think whatever message they're conveying to their kids and whatever decision they make make sure not to put their kids in the middle of that.
Right. So I
Right.
have a lot of conversations with myself about what I'm thinking. And then I sit down and I have conversations with my husband about what he is thinking. And then together we come to what the message is for our family. And then that's delivered to our family in a family meeting. And then we always have that point of reference to go back to, and we know that we are on the same page.
Love that. Love that. That's so important because I think what ends up happening is parents will then respond to the child, and then the other parent all of a sudden comes in and says, "No, no, no, that's not exactly the way I want it to be." And then there's a little bit of this discrepancy, and then there's mixed messages sometimes and other
And it's
things.
confusing for the children in a
Yeah.
time that's already very confusing.
Yes, that's such great point too. Thank you so much. Any last words about, handling our anxiety? Because I know I could just tell you I was driving today and I saw so many more cars on the road. And I actually had a reaction to that. Like I felt anxious. I felt like, whoa, like I know people still sheltering in, like we're only in phase one. Why is everybody on the road? What's going on here? Where are they going? So
Right. I've been generally taking a little bit of an ABC approach. And my ABC approach is first that I need to acknowledge how I'm feeling and
mm-hmm,
validate that and recognize what's going on for me.
mm-hmm,
And I do that also with my children, with my clients, that we need to not just shove aside all of these emotions. We really need to see them so that we can then figure out what we want to do. The next piece is my B is that I breathe. Breathing, self-care is incredibly important right now. Just taking a couple of moments for yourself can really shift from responding emotionally to responding from a more mindful
mm-hmm,
place. And then I make that commitment to myself in terms of this is the way I would like to manage the situation.
mm-hmm.
So I think if everybody can just take a moment to breathe,
Mm-hmm.
and then after that, really decide how you want to manage the situation. There are no right answers.
Yeah.
It, everybody has different belief systems. Everybody has different ways of handling situations. There are different levels of risk and adversity that people can manage. It depends on what's going on in their homes, in their communities. And so instead of judging one another, we need to be compassionate to one another and recognize that we're all, literally every single person in the world today, is in the same boat,
Yes.
and will have to make their own decisions that work for them and for their family.
Yeah. And just one more thing to add on to that before we end is I think people get very, I guess, fearful because they say, oh, the behavior of others will impact me. And that really leads to a lot of fear and sometimes aggression. And I think we also have to recognize that that's not necessarily the case. Like we have a choice whether we want to enter a store at like 1 in the afternoon, right, or right before closing,
Right.
or whether if somebody is not wearing a mask, which is completely up to them and their prerogative, right, whether we want to wait, to get into an elevator or whatever the case is. We have choices that we actually make that are in our best interest, even though people are doing whatever they want to do, and that's their prerogative.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. And I loved that elevator idea that you were just talking about, that you have the choice to say, I'm not going to take this elevator with this person, or would you mind not coming in the elevator with me?
Yeah.
And that way you're still holding true, again, integrity to what
Yeah.
your belief system is,
Mm-hmm.
and protecting yourself in the way that you feel most comfortable.
Great. Thank you so much. This has been so
Thank you.
helpful.
I always love speaking to
You
you.
too. And you are a wealth of knowledge. So you always, always give us so much information that's so helpful. So I really
And
appreciate
likewise.
it. Thank you.
Take